this time, our agenda includes a presentation on tourism and cultural affairs. So we want to invite them forward to introduce themselves and present this afternoon.
All of a sudden, my nose is going crazy.
Okay.
Make sure. Ooh,
Get our,
why is it
sure our
very
mics
sensitive?
are on, and we'll need the TV turned on in front for us as well. So we get our TV turned on as well, if you could, please. And let's see. If we can. Okay. Thanks. It's on. There you go. All right. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm just trying to see who's here.
Thank you, Daniel.
Good afternoon. I'm Danielle Cowan, and I serve as the Executive Director for Oregon's Mount Hood Territory, also known as Clackamas County Tourism and Cultural Affairs. And with me today is my colleague Cheryl Snow. She serves as the Executive Director for Arts and Culture for the county, and as well Kirk Mauser, who serves on both boards. He serves on the Tourism Development Council, on the Executive Committee as well on that, and including the Arts Alliance Board. So a little bit more on them in a few minutes. I also wanted to introduce our board chair, John Erickson, who is sitting in the front row. So thank you all for the opportunity. I'm assuming you all had an opportunity to look at some of the materials that are before you, but just quickly, tourism and cultural affairs is an economic development tool. We like to say we always do economic development, but economic development is not always tourism. So the vision is to grow that and to sustain it and to create strong partnerships and relationships to grow and sustain tourism. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with our organization, we are funded through a 6% countywide tax that is on the overnight stays and lodging properties in the county, including cities. And that was passed by the voters in '92. There is a 2% admin fee that's taken off for that for our finance department to actually collect those funds. And then we also have by ordinance a requirement that certain funds go back to the county fair. This year it's going to be approximately $450,000. It started out in the early '90s at $250,000, so they've had some growth. It's led by a 9-member citizen commission called the Tourism Development Council, which is appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. And we're guided by the master plan, which is required also by ordinance. And we're in the process of updating this year, right now, our 5-year strategic plan and priorities. So we focus on 3 general areas in the county: outdoor recreation, agritourism, and cultural heritage tourism. And we rely on our efficient and effective uses of our resources to build those programs and those strong relationships I mentioned earlier. So just in kind of a summary form, our total division budget is approximately $5.9 million, a little under. And of that, approximately just under $280,000 is, or 4% of the budget is general fund. That money is used to support the cultural affairs programming and arts programming for the county and is done under the general fund and under other leadership other than mine or the board that I work with. The other sources of revenues are our fund balance, which we carry forward. We also are involved with 2 outside programs. Well, I should say really one that's broad. The Regional Cooperative Tourism Program, which is a Travel Oregon program. The state of Oregon collects now a 1.8% tax on all lodging properties in the state. And those funds, 20% of those funds are divvied up between 7 regions. And the Clackamas County uniquely is in 3 of those regions. We happen to be the administrative agent for the Travel Oregon for the Hood Gorge region. And those funds, due to the increase in the tourism tax, Those funds for us in the last couple of years are going from what was at about $65,000 to $300,000, and then in the greater Portland area, it's going from about $475,000 to over $2 million. So you can see quite a bit of growth that's happening there. We'll kind of get into that a little bit. We have some performance outcome slides. They're mentioned here on this slide, but they really come up in a few moments, so I might as well wait till then if that's all right with the chair. Again, sorry, it shows our breakout of funds. We do not have any general fund support for our programming. Generally, we've been increasing fairly rapidly in our TRT funds. We've doubled almost over the last 8 years, but those are going to moderate now for a number of reasons, and so our projection is up just 3%. There's a lot of global issues, as you might be aware of, going on related to travel and restrictions and so forth, and so that continues to be an issue, as well as the fact that the county is getting toward its point of saturation. We only have so many rooms and capacity available, so that also will help moderate that. We work in 4 different areas to deliver these programs: our leadership and administration work, destination development, which is really our tourism assets that we work with our partners on the ground, marketing and public relations, and then our community and government relations work. In order to help, we're not a performance clackamas department, but we wanted to tie it to some of the goals that you have set as a board. And growing a vibrant economy is certainly one of those. And as an economic development tool, we've been doing just that. You can see how those funds have increased since the 2009-10 period. There. Again, visitor spending. Now, this is derived from national sources that do this kind of evaluation and performance. This is Dean Runyon and Associates. Visitor spending, this is direct spending. You can see now is up this past year over $500 million. Just some other quick stats that we thought would be helpful that my team directly is involved with, and we really have the best team. I'm just going to say that. And it's just not me saying it. We actually have global and international awards to that effect, so I think I speak for good reason on that. And this shows one of the outcomes. We have ad value in the last year of measurement up 24%, our circulation up 53%, social media followers, we are well ahead of the pack. We are up 16% this year, up to just under 200,000 followers. And you can see our marketing programs have resulted in 4.76 increase in visitors to our website. So that's all. We're very proud of that. And then some of the other areas that we do touch the county's goals are building strong infrastructure, building public trust through good government, and honor and utilize, promote, and invest in their natural resources. That's exactly what we do in a lot of our grant programs. You can see $575,000 this past year have gone back to our communities to develop different priorities. Community partnership grants go to 13 communities. That's $20,000 each, and they then grant those out for small things related to tourism within their own communities. The tourism development grants are competitive grants that can be up to $100,000, and those have gone out to very significant large projects and some smaller development projects. Heritage Capital Grants, we started this a couple of years ago, you might remember, has become very popular. It's one of the only sources for our heritage partners to come up with resources to help fix their buildings and get them visitor ready. We've done things like replacing roofs and porches and paint and electrical and all sorts of things like that. And then event sponsorships, we helped with some of the small things going on in our local communities. So that was it for basically for our tourism-based program. And then our Travel Oregon program, that budget that you see there is kind of a new mix. We did always do the Mount Hood Gorge region since its inception in 2003. But now that the Greater Portland region has also increased so much, we are looking at needing to provide more staffing to help bring those services on the ground and deliver those. And I've already explained kind of where the 1.8% tax, where that's come from and sort of how it's been distributed. So I don't need to bore you with that, but it does explain why we have a small staffing increase. We are getting one person to help with the Greater Portland work that is going to be derived from this larger program. And those will all be paid for from the Travel Oregon funds, as well as we already had a half-time position paid from Travel Oregon funds for delivering the Mount Hood Gorge region, but that's also expanded, so now it's going to be a full position instead of a half position. And the one position, we are adding a half staff to do our help with our social media programming. So that's really what we're adding, is a half for our work. And in a nutshell, that's what we have to offer, and I'm happy to take questions, but I think it would be most expedient to have Cheryl and her team go through the next few slides, and then I'd be happy to answer what I can. Sure.
Thank you. Thanks, Danielle. I'm Cheryl Snow. I am the Executive Director of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, and I want to let you know what we have been doing for the county for the past 23 years. The Arts Alliance has been working to keep arts and culture central to life in Clackamas County. I want to give you a brief summary of our place in the county structure to give you some context for our work. In 1994, the Board of County Commissioners created the Arts Alliance as an advisory committee to the county administration. In 97, we began serving the county's arts and culture providers with a helpline, with mentorships and workshops. We launched our public art program in 1999, and in that year, the Arts Alliance budget oversight was transferred from the administrator to the county library. In 2000, the BCC adopted the governing public art policies and guidelines we developed. In 2002, we began stewarding countywide cultural planning in partnership with the Oregon Cultural Trust. We achieved nonprofit status for the Arts Action Alliance Foundation in 2003 and began private sector fundraising in 2004 to sustain our arts and culture services and programming. By 2006, the Tourism and Cultural Affairs Department was created with the Tourism Development Council, and the Arts Alliance budget oversight was transferred from the library to TCA, where we happily remain today in partnership with Danielle and her team. So let me explain a little bit about the budget numbers that you see on the screen and in your packet. County general funds provided required match for various foundation grants that we received this past year and leveraged an additional $139,000, which represented 30% of our current year's operating budget. This would not have been possible without the ability to use county general funds as match for those monies. We project $193,000 in leverage grant funds for the coming fiscal year 17-18, and that will support 40% of our operations. The balance of our $467,000 budget is comprised of project management contracts, donations, and event fees. So what do we do with all that? General funds combined with grant dollars allowed us to impact more than 298,000 people last year with training workshops, technical assistance, services for at-risk youth, rotating art galleries in 19 different venues. We re-granted Oregon Cultural Trust money to meet local arts, heritage, and humanities needs, and we led a comprehensive arts economic impact study with some very compelling results that we'll be able to share with you when they're released in about 3 weeks. So much like tourism, we are not a Performance Clackamas department or agency, but we are proud to inform you that our work contributes to Performance Clackamas goals. 3 of those goals, in fact. We help to grow a vibrant economy. We participate in ensuring safe, healthy, and secure communities. And we too honor, utilize, promote, and invest in our natural resources. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, board member of the Arts Alliance, board member of Tourism Development Council, to talk with you about our Regional Arts and Culture Council.
Thanks, Cheryl, Danielle, Chair, Commissioners, committee members. Thanks for having me here. As a volunteer to the Clackamas County Arts Alliance and the Tourism Development Council and a trustee at Marylhurst University, I've spent my life in arts and culture, growing up here in initially unincorporated East Monoma County, but now called Clackamas County home. The work of the Regional Arts and Culture Council is incredibly important for the Tri-Region, and in particular to Clackamas County. The work that is currently being done is by Executive Director Eloise Damrush and her team. I am very honored to introduce the Director of Community Engagement and soon to be the interim director as of July 1st of Regional Arts and Culture Council, Jeff Hawthorne, who's in the room with us today. Under Eloise and Jeff's team, RAC has a budget here in Clackamas County of $80,000. The main source of revenues come from our general fund support. Financial issues and changes, the county reduced RAC's funding by $20,000 in fiscal year 2012 with the expressed desire to restore it when the economic conditions improved. Just to understand the value of those particular dollars, as a kid growing up in East Monroe County, and I'm going off script here and I'm probably horrifying the two next to me, but I remember going to a little park called Blue Lake Park with my folks, a young kid, and in that particular park was a pig at a trash can, and some of you might recall this. And if you delivered your trash in a timely manner, the pig would oink back at you. And you might laugh and say, well, what does that have to do with art? Well, it has everything to do with art. As a young kid, I was so impressed by the nature of this sculptured piece that created a clean environment in a public amenity such as a park that I couldn't wait to deliver my garbage in this oinking pig. Now, rumor has it that my dad threatened me a few times, saying, hey, I'm going to feed you to the pig. So you can imagine that my behavior while in the park I was well behaved. That being said, Regional Arts and Culture Council affect and create an impression on kids all over Clackamas County. In particular, I'll talk a little bit about the leverage. The dollars that we invest, the $80,000 here in the county, is leveraged by Regional Arts and Culture Council at a 460% return. 460% return on our investment. Those monies can be seen through grants, such as $24,000 that Clackamas County invested. RAC added another $13,888. It can be seen in work for art grants. Over 60 organizations, public and private, participate in this program, including employees right here at Clackamas County. Clackamas County invested $15,000, again, leveraged by RAC. RAC added $15,364,000. Again, subtotal for all grants from the $80,000 invested, $68,252. Now, on top of that, the $80,000 investment helps the Clackamas County Arts Alliance continue to do its work within the county at $20,000, and arts education, in particular, through RAC's Right Brain Initiative. Now, the investment from Clackamas County is $15,000. RAC adds to that $257,906. And I just want to say real quick, it's better to hear from kids. Kids have to say about arts and culture in our county things like, after going through programs, I have more confidence in myself now. Another young student says, now that I performed in front of all of you guys that I don't know, it feels good. It shows you that you are capable of doing anything you want, anything. It gives you power to stand up to someone you don't know and show them what you got. Another young student says, I liked learning something new that I didn't know before and working with people I don't know and seeing how we can work together as a team. A Right Brain Initiative is an initiative that transforms learning for all children through arts, creativity, innovation, and whole brain thinking. Its values are based on equity, collaboration, accountability, and sustainability. Other RAC services that are included in that $80,000, $6,000 for additional RAC services, again totaling $80,000. The grants that are received, and I mentioned this $68,252,000, support Clackamas County artists and arts organizations such as Bighorn Brass, Music Education in Schools. They've been around since 1983. We invested, they received a grant of $2,360. It also supports an artist exhibition of paintings of wellness and nature. Lakewood Center in Lake Oswego, very important arm of our community, which has been presenting over 63 seasons. Resident choral arts, Soul Patch Music Productions, a jazz concert promoter, and 4 professional development grants for individual artists in Clackamas County. In the schools I mentioned, Right Brain Initiative, 16 schools in North Clackamas School District and Oregon Trail School District. 16 schools are supported through these funds of $272,906,000. So you may ask, where does that $80,000 go? Well, again, it's leveraged at 460%. And so the addition of reinstating and building that regional goodwill of reinstating the $20,000 will go a very, very long way. So thank you for your time. Danielle?
Thank you. Thank you. Again. And just in summary, so we get to any questions you may have. Again, our department-wide budget is just under 5.9 million, or yes, 5.9 million. Hard to say that these days. It used to be 2 something. The total general fund support, again, is for the arts and culture at almost 280,000. And the major sources of revenue are the county TRT transient room tax and the statewide transient lodging tax. Again, arts and culture general fund. Our personnel makes up 27.4% of our budget. Marketing, promotions, public relations, about 28%. Grants, local grants take about 20% of our budget, and the RCTP state program represents about 8% of our budget. Financial trends, I think I've already mentioned about what's going on with the travel restrictions and kind of what the travel behavior is, what's happening out there. Our expenditure trends, and that didn't really get on the slide, but I do have some information there for you on that. Our expenditure trends for marketing and public relations is going to be up 8.63%, just under 9%, and that is due to the increase in the state travel Oregon monies. Our destination development will be up about 11.5% in our investments, and that's going to be due to increases in outreach to tourism operators and for potential visitations. So the community partnership will be up 5.3%. We're adding the addition of a geo tour and some additional funds for partner training on that one. And then lastly, the grant program will be at 0% change. We're going to retain the same amount. This past year, we went to $250,000. We're going to retain that $250,000 in the development grant monies. And I believe that may take us to questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. As a parent of children in the North Clackamas School Districts, that I've seen firsthand how their lives have been transformed by performing in the arts departments there. I very much appreciate the importance of the performing arts and art in our community and how that does transform people's lives personally. So thank you. We do have questions, and I think Commissioner Humberson was first, and then Jim, and then Paul Savas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me preface my remarks by saying that if it wasn't for music, I don't know if I'd have stayed in high school. And to this day, it's an important part of my life. I collect a wide variety of kinds of music, probably have several thousand albums. I'm old school. I still like vinyl, but
And you were out singing at lunch. Right.
don't embarrass me. I noted your comments regarding the cut to RAC 5 years ago, and that the intention apparently was to replace that $20,000 or restore that $20,000 when the economy approved. It seems to have done so. I don't see it as a line item, so I needed to ask.
Yeah, so it's not in the figures yet, because when I discussed this with the board at our May 23rd issues, the budget documents had already been prepared. But as I noted in my budget message, our intent is to include that. So you would see that the general fund contribution to tourism and cultural affairs that shows up on the revenue would increase from 279,000 to 299,000. So,
You've answered my question. Thank you very much. I just wanted to be sure it would be there.
Thank you. Commissioner Bernard.
So explain to me how tourism is an economic development tool.
Well, because it is a tool that is used to bring funds in from outside of our economic shed. It's referred to as traded sector, although economic development professionals sometimes Wynn said that because they don't think of it that way, but if you think about it, the definition of a visitor is somebody that comes from more than 50 miles and/or spends the night. So these are not local dollars circulating around. These are new investment dollars that come in, and then they're expended in ways that develop the tourism industry further. So it's reinvested to create even more tourism industry and more revenue, more jobs, et cetera, related to that. So its only purpose is for economic development.
Well, I was thrilled actually at a recent economic development forum when they actually mentioned tourism, perhaps
Was
for the
I.
first time I'd ever heard it said, because tourism, like you said, is not so different from the exports. You're exporting your county across the world, and consequently, they're paying for that export. So having those dollars come to the county are huge. And I understand there are some hotels being considered, one Westland, one in in Oregon City, and hopefully a few more around the county. Oh yeah, and there was one on Sunnybrook too that was being considered. So hopefully that growth will continue. And I know that you reaching out across the world, and how do you pick an area that you'd like to focus your efforts to draw those people in? How do you pick those areas?
Well, thank you for the question, Chair. We don't do much without a lot of research and a lot of data to support what we're doing and our initiatives. One of the ways we do that is we work with our partners, Travel Oregon and Travel Portland. We don't go into a place that they haven't been before. They've already made investment. So the world is a very big place, and Oregon is a very small speck on that dot of the world to visit. And so it's hard to get noticed, and so it would be kind of challenging on our own. So we work with our partnerships. We look at those industries and areas that have like-minded folks who like to travel, who have time to travel. We look at the expenditures, et cetera. So we are very focused. We also look at things that we might be able to carry forward on our own that, and we don't necessarily have to have Travel Oregon and Travel Portland handhold us. One of those is Australia, New Zealand, Travel Oregon, Travel Portland are there, but because a lot of the interest is on skiing, they sort of handed that baby over to us. And now my team is sort of leading up what's going on for skiing. So it just depends. But we are limited in where we invest our time and energy because we don't have that much staff or that much money compared to some folks. And we rely on Travel Oregon and Travel Portland to go into those places. We call it schlepping us along with them. We give them a little bit of extra money, and they promote us while they're in places that we can't be. So we're very selective because of the limitations we have.
Thank you.
Yeah, this year's ski season was exceptional, so
Yes, thank
hopefully it
goodness.
brought in some more folks. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, so I got a few questions here. I'm reading the vision statement and the mission, and the part on the mission where it speaks to asset development. What do you consider the assets that pertain to the mission?
Commissioner Savas, they're varied. It depends on what area we're talking about. We've been working a lot, as you know, on our bicycle tourism assets, and so we've worked with the Sandy Ridge Trail, which is now a global draw for us. We work with our partners on hiking trails, on bicycle trails, on heritage trails, so that we can draw people in. So we've developed and finished off trails. We've worked with our partners to replace roofs or to to build on strategies that they maybe, for instance, we've done agritourism strategy, so we've helped with our farmers and ranchers who want to help monetize the tourism aspects that they could do. So we invest a great deal of money to build, for instance, we also invested $100,000 a couple of years ago to help build the Riverwalk at Oregon City. So it depends what the development grants are, it depends what the asks are. Then our team also dives in pretty deep to work on, currently we're doing a heavy lift on a river recreation, or well, now we call it water because we have a lot of different bodies of water, a water recreation strategy for the county. And that'll be delivered hopefully at the local level once we develop that. So, but it has to be tourism related.
Well, the reason I ask, and I think I mentioned this to you before, and that, you know, I think when a lot of people retire, they tend to travel, they, you know, they participate in tourism all around, and I have a lot of family that live in-state and out of state who come up here, and they used to come up here quite a bit, that we used to live in-state to go to some of the museums and so forth. And now when they come up, sometimes they're meeting locked doors. And so I think that's one of our assets that maybe ought to have more attention put to it. I know I've raised this 6 years. Will continue to. I think it is one of the assets that especially people who maybe aren't in the physical condition to ride a bike or ski down a slope, who are actually have the wherewithal, actually in the retirement monies to spend and to stay and lodge, you know, may not participate in those physical activities. And granted, we need to cater to all age groups. And so I think that's an important aspect.
May I respond to that, Commissioner Savas, on that? We have been investing in that, just so you know. I mentioned the $50,000 for the heritage facilities. Those are from museums and so forth. So we actually established a new grant fund just for those folks. We've done the Heritage Trail. We've updated the Teletels, which is now online, and a search capacity there that you can find out and plan itineraries. And we've been working very closely with our heritage partners on those and a number of other efforts. So I'm pleased to report that we've responded, and we are actually investing quite a bit. And I think our heritage partners are fairly satisfied with the direction that we've been going.
Yeah, and so on that expenditure piece, which is I'm really trying to find actually both in your presentation today and in the budget.
It's the grant?
Is, well, not necessarily the grant per se, but of the approximately $6 million of income revenues received. You did a great job with the pie chart showing the expenditure of about 10% of that, this $595,000, let's say. But not much detail about the other 95% of the expenditures. And unlike a lot of other budgets that are dominated pretty much by personnel staff, a good chunk of the budget is being spent, you know, on some of the, well, all I can see is the line items and so forth. So I'm wondering how many of those companies, consultants are Clackamas County businesses? Do you have any idea?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not really quite understanding the question, but just so that you know, we have a almost $1 million contract that we run each year for our marketing. So that's where a big chunk does marketing. And we have another chunk that goes to some PR and those public relations. And those efforts are, and also to our website. So a lot of it is the technology and social media. We focus a bit, as you noted probably in the presentation, we focus on, in addition to outdoor recreation, is heritage and cultural recreation and agritourism. And so those three things are promoted heavily and focused on in and on our website and in all of our marketing materials. And so we are deeply engaged in investing into our cultural and heritage partners. And so I think the line item budget itself, you can see how much goes to sales materials, ads, you know, promotion, extra promotions of our social media posts and things like that. So what you can't see are the dollars that really go into those heavy marketing things. They're not necessarily going to a firm or something. They're paying for ad buys and so forth across.
Right.
Across
I guess
the
my
country.
my point was that, you know, going back to the vision statement about optimizing the economic impacts of the tourism industry derived from our county. It'd be nice to be able to spread that around to assets or businesses maybe within the county. So do we monitor visits to the whole range of assets in the county, tourism-related assets? Do we actually do like a head count versus a percentage? I certainly know that the bicycling, outdoor bicycling and skiing had a great year. I know that all those outdoor activities are on the rise. Great work, appreciated. But do we have an idea about the range of assets for the range of ages and people with mobility issues? Do we have any kind of a head count?
We, to answer your question, we do monitoring. We've just done a brand impact study to find out kind of who's coming for what and where they're going. It's very challenging to monitor how many people are out on the Sandy Ridge Trail, for instance, or how many are going to government camp and at the Visitor Information Center we have there, or the end of the Oregon Trail. Although those places do counts for us. So we do have a count when people walk into the doors of our assets, which are, we have Visitor Information Centers at the end of the Oregon Trail in Oregon City. We have one up at government camp at the Mount Hood Cultural Museum. And then we have a third one at Zigzag, and all those are at the Zigzag Ranger Station. Those all monitor, count people who are coming. Longwoods and a number of other studies are used to track, as well as, our hits. We can do a lot through our social media stuff, but physically and in such an expansive county as we have, and in such a kind of a hands-on in the woods or on the land kind of, it's really hard to monitor exactly where they're going, but we do make an effort as much as we can to get those counts.
Right, so I'm reading on your, on page 1, the guiding principles, and you have under there, on the third bullet, outdoor recreation, you mentioned agritourism and cultural, so to speak, the three legs, legs of the stool. And I'm wondering if you have just a rough idea in your head, because I can't derive it out of the material here, how much percentage-wise is invested in those activities?
Well,
Or is one stronger than the other?
we-
Would I suspect that maybe outdoor recreation is a substantial part?
I think it's a lot less. I think actually more of our hands-on investment strategies have probably gone into cultural heritage tourism and agritourism, some outdoor rec for sure, but we spend a lot of time and energy on those that have a harder time. For instance, just take our ski industry. We have some very sophisticated partners in Timberline, Ski Bowl, and so forth. They do a great deal of advertising. They're well-known. We don't have to spend a lot of our energies on that, even though we do promote it internationally. But when you're talking about museums that can't keep the lights on and are trying to develop programming, trying to make themselves relevant again, we spend a lot of staff time and resources on helping those kinds of activities. Same with our small communities that are struggling. We work with them. I would say that Cheryl would say the same about their arts and culture program. Those that are kind of really well-known and doing well, in this case, outdoor recreation, those we don't have to do a lot with. But we do with the rest, and we do package and work with our small communities. Say for bicycle tourism, that's been extremely important to many of our small rural communities, because that gives them some economic development tools that they can work around. So it's not like, okay, that's all focused on outdoor recreation. And particularly when we go to our website or our marketing, it's not one or the other. They're all three. We do everything randomized so we don't like focus on one entity over another. And the same with our businesses. We are, everyone gets lifted up by this.
Yeah, I'd love to see some numbers on the number one, the head count on some of our assets, what the TDC feels are the assets related to tourism, and maybe what that is. It's hard, I know that as a business, if you shorten your hours and one of your clients or customers goes to a locked door, they're sometimes not likely to come back because they don't want to meet another locked door. So it spirals downward in that end. So we need to help lift those up, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
With that said, I just want to close with one thing. I appreciate the email you and I last exchanged regarding two topics, but one topic in particular was I was trying to draw your attention or information to see what you knew about the articles that were coming out related to the homeless and how the tourism industry was affected by the homeless, and particularly Portland. A couple of news articles, September, February, I believe, May. And since then, I've done a little bit of research and realized that there is a nexus, apparently. Portland Travel, is that what it is? I don't have
Travel
it.
Portland.
Travel Portland. They recognize a value to that, apparently, that some of the tourists, they had some comments, and they kind of had a not-so-good experience. And they felt that spending some of those tourism dollars to help some of those people out and help that out, not only gain perhaps political capital, but also we're able to help focus on putting some of those people back to work. And I love to share some of that stuff I've learned about that. But that one bill that you had referenced, I don't necessarily think that's what I was suggesting. I could see why it was inappropriate and why the committee, the review committee, found that that was not an appropriate means for tourism dollars. However, you know, Oregon's not the only state that's dealing with this, and tourism seems to be a means. So I was just throwing out the idea, just for fodder in the future, plant a seed that if we were to revisit the ordinance and maybe put it out to maybe enhance more dollars or whatnot for heads on beds, whatnot, that we ought to look at that as a possibility for funding for both the fair, for a little bit more for the museums, and maybe clear up any of the confusion as to the interpretation of the existing ordinance as to what it means, and so forth. But at least putting some, because people that have the wherewithal, I think, would be sympathetic to those who don't have a roof over their head or don't have a bed, that putting a little bit towards this homeless crisis would be a good thing. And I think we would all maybe perhaps benefit from having some measurable means or effective means of putting some people back to work. And if some of these dollars that we spend, these 5 million some odd dollars, if some of those are spent locally, maybe we put some people back to work as well.
Thank you. Our goal is to put people back to work and in jobs, and we have, I'm happy to report. The problem is not about our ordinance, though. The problem, as from your perspective, I think would be more with the state statutes, which require that tourism dollars are spent on people who are traveling more than 50 miles and/or spend the night. And so your tourism strategy is not your homeless strategy, and you can't. It's just been debated just more recently, even in the legislative process, and I was part of that, you can't take tourism development funds and use them for homeless programs. There are other ways that you might be able to get there, but that was not found to be to fulfill state statutes. That
If it improves the tourism experience, like fixing a roof or a facade, or some of the other expenditures.
We call that being visitor ready. We have not, as far as I've known, and in this session, there's no consensus and there's no strategy around using tourism dollars for homelessness, and that was even in the interim work group that I participated on for the legislature. It was put aside as not something that could be done with those dollars. I don't know, I'd have to talk with you offline about what Travel Portland might be doing. I don't believe they're using the TRT dollars for homelessness.
I'll actually pass that article. They are, and I'll pass that information along, and not only just Oregon, but another state as well that's doing that.
Yeah, and other states, unfortunately, in this case, doesn't matter, because it's really our state statutes and so forth that we have to, our state statutes are very clear about how these dollars can be spent. So.
It may require a legislative remedy to move.
And that's what we just had those discussions, so I don't see the appetite right now for that, but it could change. But it's definitely not a county issue, it's a statewide issue.
Well, it's in the media, so it's obviously of interest.
It's
there may be
obviously, and Airbnb, I think you're referring to the intermediaries, those are the ones that have been contributing to some of the homelessness and houselessness that's been going on.
See,
Eric, I think you were next.
Am I next?
Yeah.
I'm next. Okay. Couple questions. First one, dealing with the,
Mic on? Mic?
Mike?
mic's on.
Blue light? Okay.
I did?
Yep.
It's blue.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. There you go.
Good. Okay, I'm looking at the budget document that we have to look at on page 4 of the budget. And I'm looking at the performance measures that you have listed there. And I'm wondering if, I mean, you say you're not a managing for results department. And my question is, it seems to me like just looking at these performance measures that you ought to be, because you're basically saying, well, you know, we collected so much money, we did this, we spent so much there. But I'm with Commissioner Savas, I'm trying to say, okay, what are we getting for the dollars that we're spending? Who's spending it and what department, what areas? Is it outdoor recreation? Is it museums? What is it? And how many people are actually participating? I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, we got money coming in, but, you know, one of those things like the annual grant funding made available for local tourism project, $575,000 versus $530,000, is that really a performance measure? That you're spending more money? I don't think so.
I think I'm missing the nexus there, the
Page 4,
page 4.
Department Goal 1 to the countywide area focus.
This one, sorry, I'm in the wrong page. I'm sorry. Thank you.
sorry.
I was looking at the wrong document. Going, "Well, I'm not sure. Page
Oh, I said it was the budget.
Yeah, on our budget book.
all righty.
Oh, she's,
So
Spending money does not seem to me like it's a performance measure.
well, it actually is granting monies back that are not county funds, just as much as the same we were talking about with RAC. These are monies that are TRT-based that are going back into communities that normally would not. So these are investments. But I just wanted to add, because this is a really important point, and I didn't mention it earlier on because I think I've said it in the past, that the Tourism Development Council by ordinance is the one charged with determining how and what to expend funds on, and they make the decisions. It is not the Board of County Commissioners that does that. So we have way more stringent and way deeper, expanded performance measurement than what you would find in most county departments, and we report on many, many measures. This was just to bring it up in order to have something within these documents. So these are important. If revenues aren't increasing, then we have some challenges. And so we've shown steady increasing revenues, which means we're translated into doing the work in a way that is developing those programs. And the same with our department goal. That's been decided in the past too, about trying to return investments into those communities, local communities. And I might add, outside of Travel, Oregon, and just recently in Washington County, we're the only entity that I'm aware of in the state that actually puts TRT money back into these asset development strategies.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm
I'm
just
just saying
saying,
that
what are we
that's
getting
investment.
for the $575,000?
We have a ROI, and I would say there's probably maybe 100 projects that have probably been invested in across a broad swath. So we'd have to look at all those, and they all require ROI. It's part of the competitive strategies for the grant process. So all of those reported there would be challenging to roll those up for this purpose, and we hadn't been asked to. So we do measure as much as we can everywhere across the board. It's just that with this particular budget, we present it in this format, and the details are really shared and worked through with the Tourism Development Council.
So are you going to continue to not be a managing for results entity?
It's not known, and maybe the administrator would like to add to that, but right now, we're not one of those. We are we're on a different program and been doing it quite a bit longer.
So if I may just briefly address this, the county code tasks the Tourism Development Council with putting together what is a tourism development master plan that then is brought forward before the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners then take action on that plan. In fact, I'm expecting the master plan will be brought before the Board of County Commissioners from the Tourism Development Council midway through the month of June at one of their regular business meetings. In addition to that, well, let me back up a moment. So with the master plan in place, what the county code basically then says is it authorizes the Tourism Development Council to allocate TRT funds to carry out projects and programs that are intended to implement that master plan that's adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. On an annual basis, the Tourism and Cultural Affairs Department staff in concert with the Tourism Development Council, put together an annual business plan, which is in much of the same respects the kind of sort of thinking that gets developed with the strategic business plans that the various departments do and identify the various things that they plan on undertaking. It's my hope, though, that for the ensuing year, when we put together the budget for next fiscal year, that we'll be able to use is they'll be able to take that master plan and take their annual business plan and integrate that into the MFR format that we use for the presentation of the budget, with then the performance measures highlighted as we have done with the other departments there. But we're not having them go through that consultant facilitated process we have done with other departments, because it in many respects would be a bit of a replication of work that they're already currently doing with the Tourism Development Council. Hope that helps.
Okay. Then let's go to the slide, page 4. And please don't take my comments or questions as criticism. What I'm trying to do is get some clarification here. Because in slide number 7 on page 4 of your, or actually it's slide 7, I'm sorry. It's page 4 here because we have 2 slides per page. So slide 7 is where you say growing a vibrant economy. And there you're touting the growth in social media or visitors to a website as a growth in a vibrant economy. I guess I'm having a hard time translating that to economic dollars coming into the county.
Well, for these are potential visitors or visitors who are now going to make a decision based on our work to travel here and spend dollars. So that is we're engaging them in the travel purchasing world. And we have our public relations, for instance. A lot of that are media that end up, we call it earned media, which we get articles and stories and such shared in publications like the LA Times and New York and other places that drive interest in choosing Clackamas County, Mount Hood Territory as a destination that people want to spend the night or a weekend, a whole week at, and invest their dollars. So these are, by all measures in travel tourism across the country, across the world, these are the measures that people hope for. So it may not be common for what we experience in county government, but these are the common measures and the goals that are established in the tourism industry, and they indicate success. And they are numbers that are envied by many of our partners and competitors. And so when you see these, it's not just, hey, wow, what's the big deal there? This means that people are tuning in to our messaging. They're getting interested. They're investing. They're traveling here. And they may or may not at some point in their lives actually decide to move here or start a business here because they've been so impressed. So it's getting out our branding and messaging so that people are coming here and spending their dollars and creating jobs within our local communities. It's a very direct relationship.
Okay, I guess the issue is that I don't have access. I'm not given the industry statistics, so I don't know whether this is normal for the industry or not normal for the industry, but I'm thinking just from a practical standpoint, how do I turn those visits to a website or a Facebook page or something like that into dollars for the county?
For our purposes, it's very challenging because it's very hard to capture, except for we can see what they tell a story, all of our numbers together. So these increasing, our revenues increasing, our investment in our local communities all increasing. I think together we're able to see a pattern of effect, and I could provide for you kind of the statistics for what's going on. I'm not sitting here at this moment, be happy to get it back to you about how this compares to our other travel industry partners out there as far as the numbers, but we're considered one of the best in the nation, so I don't know how else to say it. It might be challenging to have it understood in the short amount of time with this group, because it's just a different kind of approach than what you're accustomed to seeing, I think, for most of your budgets here.
Okay. I noticed the general fund support is a constant $279,359 per year.
I'm sorry, can you repeat
I
that?
see that the general fund support is a constant $279,359 per year.
And that's for the arts and culture program for the general funds. The tourism program itself receives none, no general fund.
Okay, but I guess my question is do you foresee any reduction in that number because of revenue, increased revenue?
Once again, they're not related to one another. The tourism programming is related to the TRT funds, and the arts and culture program is general fund and other funds, and they do not necessarily have a tourism mission. We are the pass-through agency for the arts and culture program, so they're not necessarily related.
I guess I'm just thinking of your whole department. You know, if I was looking at it as a business, I'd say, look, I got this activity, that activity, and I got this much money coming in. Do I need to?
And in this case, the arts and culture program, it at one time was with the library and another time was with the board, with the PGA, Public and Government Affairs. And so it's totally a pass-through with a different board that I do not sit on, Cheryl Snow does. And the restricted funds besides. So our funds can't necessarily go to help arts and culture unless they have a tourism face or a tourism-related purpose. And arts and culture funds are a totally different bucket of funds that we don't intermix with.
Okay, so what you're saying is the arts and culture money that's coming from the general fund is gonna have to be there forever if you want arts and culture in the county. Is that right?
If I may, too, I mean, that's been the general fund commitment to the arts and culture program. And also what I am proposing in this year's coming budget is actually a $20,000 increase in that $279,000 to $299,000 to restore the funding that went to the Regional Arts and Culture Council's arts education program. So it'll actually go up for this coming year's budget.
Yeah, I heard you last time. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Humberson?
You used an expression in explaining something to Mr. Hofeld, pattern of, I'm trying to remember what the exact words were, but it best explained the relationship between Facebook and the increase in tourism.
Okay.
Because there's not a direct you can't make a direct one-for-one correlation on that. So if you could remember that phrase again, I would appreciate it, because it's the best explanation I actually heard, and then I got distracted. So.
Apparently I did too, because I can't remember, but yeah.
But my only other question was, I know we give a certain amount of money to the Fair Board, but I don't see it as a line item in here, so where would I find that?
So, and earlier in my presentation, I mentioned the $450,000. I think it's early in my slide presentation
Yep.
that goes to the county fair, and that's increased since inception from $250,000. That comes right off the top. We don't ever see that. So county finance distributes that to the county fair.
why it's
So
not here.
that's why it's not here. You'd find it in the county fair budget, which I believe you saw the other day.
Yeah, it's, when Business and Community Affairs met with you, they talked about that particular appropriation in the Fair Board budget, so.
We saw
just-
that in there.
Didn't catch that it's not in their budget as a transfer over, but that's fine. Thank you.
Right. Commissioner Savas?
I just want to just comment. I think what I was driving at, and maybe what Eric was driving at as well, is because it's very clear what the pie chart shows with the 590 some odd thousand. It's not clear about the 5.9 million or 5.89 million that is part of the total expense or near your budget, near your income. And I, as someone who actually ran several websites and used a lot of website analytics, I agree that's something you follow, but I don't think that is the only thing. Because if it was, I probably wouldn't have, because it had a relationship, and the analytics that can be done are significant. whether they're impressions, which are the least valuable, versus time spent on a particular page versus an actual click, and translating that into revenue spent is something that's hard to follow. But I think it's an indicator, and I think it's worth following. But I don't think it is the all. That's just my experience. But I would just say that because of the dollar amount here and a substantial amount, portion of that not being personnel, as opposed to other departments that we've looked at so far, it would be clear for us to see some of those measurements of success somehow and be more explanatory on that. I think you did a great job on the 595,000, but it's the remainder, I think, is the point. And I think the measurements, whether they're strategic or whatnot, but the performance measures could be really enhanced, at least the budget presentation at the very minimum. You know, in a language maybe that the 10 of us would be able to follow.
I'm happy to hear that. We did throw in a few slides to describe more than what I think was originally conceived of in this presentation. So we're happy to supply more, and we can also provide the annual business plan, which gives a lot more of those stats too each year. So, and I think that might be helpful. I'd be happy to provide that as well.
Yeah, because they are taxpayer dollars. At the end of the day, they're taxpayer dollars, and I think the Budget Committee just wants to know where it's going and how it's being spent, and make sure that there's results for those dollars expended.
We didn't want to overload, and we were trying to stay within the format for the budget, so that's what.
Oh, yeah, you know, like I said, you put it there so we can read, but there's just not much in there to read even, you know, yesterday or the night before, so.
Commission Chair Bernard.
I just wanted to quickly say, aren't there portholes in your website? I honestly don't look at your website.
Portals, not
Portals? Where people can make reservations?
We,
Click on
yes,
and
we
go.
do use a third-party website that, or partner that does, Jackrabbit does do those kinds of, it looks seamless to them, but we don't actually do it ourselves. We pay a partner to work on those.
But I mean, that's one way you could get some stats, couldn't you?
And we do have all of those. I mean, we probably have more stats than you could ever want to look at, but, you know, we can
Print
provide
them all
those,
out,
so.
bring them next time.
Okay. Well done. Yes, go ahead.
Very quickly, I was trying to do a little bit of research and wasn't working out, but if I remember correctly, so just kind of to put in perspective the way some of the things with, say, Facebook work, Pickathon is one of the most major events that's held in, at least in the North Clackamas County area. And I can't remember their exact number of people that come, but I know they have to restrict it every year. I think it's something like 25,000 people. Yeah, 20. Yeah, that and almost all of those are from outside the region. And I follow Pickathon on Facebook, so I know that they, for instance, just on their website, let alone, or on their Facebook, let alone what TDC may have, you know, promoted, that there were, you know, probably 100,000, you know, people who either made comment or liked it or you know, went on there at one point in time. But people won't know about events like that if there's not I did it again. Dang, I'm so sorry. If there's not broad-based marketing. And so as I was looking through the budget, I noticed that there's well over $1 million that's spent in a variety of marketing opportunities, including advertising and print brochures and trade shows and things like that. So I just wouldn't want folks to get the idea that the major way you're marketing is through social media, although I tend to agree that that's a great way to market, and I know the others think so too. But we do want to know how the money is being spent. And being a person who, for the 19 years I've lived here, has utilized the services of tourism and of arts and, you know, of the cultural arts, first as a user of your funds, your grant funds with the Chambers of Commerce and the kinds of things that, you know, communities are able to provide because of the grants that you supply. I know there have to be a variety of ways that you get that word out, and to market locally is not feasible because you want people from outside. But I agree that as much as you can use local vendors for anything, people that design your brochures or people that do your website updates, I know you have staff that does that too, but, those kinds of things, I think we all would appreciate, a real effort towards that, since this is one of those areas where we're dependent on, basically it's a traded sector, entity. So we're dependent on money from the outside to increase the wealth and viability of those of us who live here, right?
And that's absolutely a strategy that we use. It doesn't always work that, say, an advertising agency that we work with, although localized in the Portland region, is not necessarily Clackamas County. But we do try to stay fairly local and where we can, but as you know, you don't always get all the expertise you need. And so we do look regionally. It's a very specified sort of industry, so it's not as easy sometimes, but yes, we do that, as you know, as much as we can.
Yeah. I just know there's a wide variety of ways you reach out, and they
Yes,
seem
and
to be
social media is not
successful.
it only, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, and important for especially our listening audience to know too, that there are also local ways in which you reach out. I mean, for instance, just at our Milwaukee Farmers Market recently, the van was there, the tourism van.
Visitor information, mobile visitor information center.
Yeah, with all kinds of information about almost everything anywhere in the county or near to the county where that folks could go see, go do, go stay, go, whatever. It was amazing. And it was busy the whole time it was there.
I'll check, make sure we charged them.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That van goes all over now, all over the Pacific Northwest, California, and other places. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're running a little late. If we have some final quick comments, Eric?
Just two. You mentioned in your presentation that New Zealand and Australia were two countries that you were branding Clackamas County in. And I'm wondering if you have any statistics on how many visitors we have from New Zealand and Australia? And the second question is, you have in the budget $70,000 for travel that is, and per diem, that is not related to mileage. And I'm wondering if that's involving more trips to New Zealand and Australia?
Yes, and many more. We travel to Europe. We travel to certain team members to participate in international trade shows. So we have travel of different staff that go to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe. We've done some looking into China, and we're looking into Japan again. We have travel that goes to some, this past year, Austin, Texas, Minneapolis. We have some targeted markets there where we're building our tourism base and promotions. So we have a number of people traveling all over, and including some of our partners that go to these places on our behalf. So we help pay fares depending on what the strategy is and what the program is and where we're going. So yes, we've increased those because we've increased the number of people and where they're going. They expanded, the other part of that is the regional cooperative tourism program that I mentioned with Travel Oregon. That's one of the big reasons why there's an increase, because all of those programs, most all of those programs are international programs. And so the regional persons will be traveling internationally and basically on the Travel Oregon or the statewide tax versus our own local tax. So it shows up in our budget, but there's a lot of those funds are to support that expanded program at the state level.
I'm just wondering what the return on investment is for all that travel, international travel.
We can definitely show the growth, but like in all things, it is challenging. We do use VisaView and some of the other methodologies to track who's coming where. It's challenging, not just for us, but for partners to figure out how do you track that. But we do get some stats from international and national organizations on that. I can share those through another channel.
Well, you might want to consider using that in a future MFR as a result.
Say that again?
Or international.
Return on investment of international travel?
Yes.
as a measure for.
As a
As a
measure,
measure,
For MFR.
yeah.
so,
Okay.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you for coming and sharing with us the Tourism and Cultural Affairs budget and presentation for the day. I think, is there anything else? Not? Well, thank you again.
Thank you.